Welcome to the Friendly Fox podcast, where you will discover how to incorporate more creativity into your everyday life. Welcome to the Friendly Fox podcast. The reason I wanted to start a podcast in addition to our YouTube videos is because I think it's really important to talk about creativity and why it is so meaningful and why it is really a life-changing experience if you have never been someone who has dabbled in creative endeavors before, or if you're somebody who is a seasoned professional in the creative space. I think that creativity is a real game changer for mental health, happiness, and maybe more so than a lot of other factors that people would refer to when thinking about how to improve the quality of their life. So let's back up. What kind of creative experience am I drawing on here? Now, while I don't think that anybody has to have any sort of creative background in order to benefit from or have an opinion about creativity, I do think that it's important for the sake of this conversation to provide some context. So I worked in the entertainment industry as a songwriter and a performer for several years. I love that work. I still love that work. And then during COVID, my family decided to start a retail store in January. As COVID played out throughout the year or 18 months, whatever you want to call that time frame, performing, touring just wasn't really the same. It almost wasn't even possible for a certain amount of time. Which led me to the discovery that while I always identified as a musician and somebody who is a songwriter, and that is inherently creative, that running a retail store was just as creative in some aspects. And then beyond that, because of not traveling as much due to everything that was going on in the world, I started writing books. And those fantasy novels were just another form of creativity. And all that to say that if you are a creative person, or even if you're not a creative person, there is a lot of value to be found in discovering a creative expression that brings you peace, joy, fulfillment, happiness. And a lot of those aspects can be found in creative endeavors that don't require a lot of time or money or outlay of energy. That is the beauty of creativity. And I would argue that if you're someone who thinks I'm not really creative or I don't really know how to be creative, I would argue that you do. Maybe you just haven't recognized in what way yet. Creativity is in everything from cooking to drawing to writing to the way that you decide to lay out your house, to the paths that you decide to drive to work. Even if they're the most convenient or the shortest path, there's still an element of choice. And I would say that that requires some level of creativity. If you are intentional about your creativity, I think that it can be a major source of happiness and potentially some frustration as you discover this process, but it's very fulfilling to have a creative endeavor and to engage in it. I was just talking with a friend who is also a musician, but she has recently had children, and it just doesn't really provide her with as much time when she is also being a mom full time. But she was able to carve out a section of time for all of them to do something creative together. And the level of fulfillment that she was relaying to me through our conversation was something that I just don't know that people put enough value on, how intrinsically fulfilling and satisfying a creative project can be for your mental health, for your well-being, and for your sense of achievement. Because creativity doesn't really have to be measured except for your level of satisfaction in it. The work is done when you feel it's done. And I think that that is the magic that sometimes people miss out on with creativity. It doesn't have to be your source of income. It doesn't have to be a disciplined, demanding task. Of course, you can make it all of those things, but I do think that for every single person, there is a lot of value to be found in a creative pursuit just for the sake of creativity, for what it can offer you in intangible value. So thanks for listening to this inaugural episode of the Friendly Fox podcast. We will continue to share creativity and conversations like this with myself and other people who have creative projects, endeavors, in hopes that we can inspire you to be more creative in your everyday.